most of us get up in the morning and we just get up and we do. See, we never question the foundational basis of what we do. You know, in other words, the foundations upon those things that we do, we never question them, okay? And if we were to be asked to articulate those foundational bases, I would bet the majority of us could not articulate them, even though they're the foundational basis of our actions, our thinking processes, and so on. In other words, they become so embodied in us, we don't question them. Okay? We don't question them. We just think that's the way it is. Remember, I always call out and mention Walter Cronkite, remember CBS anchor? He used to always say, that's the way it is, at the end of his newscast. For those of you that are old enough, you know, like me, you know, the younger generation wouldn't recall. See, and have you ever had a conversation with somebody and they make a statement and you ask them, how do you know that? And they say, a scientist or science says that. And when they say that, that's usually the end of the conversation. See? Well, it used to be that way back, the church used to know it all. They were the ones that were going to, or had the answers, and tell us what it was all about, what reality was all about. But we all know that they don't know. Then about 500-600 years ago, we changed horses to the scientists. And we gave and continue to give billions of dollars to the scientists. It's kind of like we're telling the scientists, you go out there and find out the answer for us while we go and play bingo. See? Well, after 500-600 years, the scientists are coming back and are telling us, I don't know. We're not too sure. We think the answer is in you. That's really what the scientists are coming back with. A Nobel Prize scientist, Steven Weinberg, has said, if humans as interpreters of reality, okay, if we took them out of the picture, and you know how scientists talk about objectivity, okay? If we took them out of the picture, that's what reality would really be all about. But unfortunately, we can't take the humans out of it, because as soon as humans come into the picture, an interpretive postulate also comes into the picture. And that interpretive postulate becomes the template for interpreting what's out there. See, in other words, you and I have our interpretive instruments, just like that computer, okay? We have our sensory intakes, okay? And we use those interpretive postulates to interpret that template, to interpret what's out there. See? Well, let's go through that type of exercise. Let's go through that type of exercise. All societies at one time or another, these really are my notes, you see, lay claim to a territory. Within that territory, a culture arises from the mutual relationship with the land. A culture consists of paradigmatic concepts, values, and customs. Paradigms are the tacit infrastructures members of the society use for their beliefs, behaviors, and relationships. Okay? So that's the templates. Okay? Now, these beliefs, behavior, and relationship norms manifest as the metaphysics. So in other words, those are our metaphysics. And each society has their own metaphysics. Okay? These metaphysics become the interpretive tools to explain everything from science to human affairs. Okay? And see, that's where, as he was explaining, hey, one society sees things different, just like a PC computer sees things different from a Mac computer, Things, you feed them the same stuff, and they'll come out jumbo, The metaphysics of one society will differ from that of another. Okay? Now, one has to understand the paradigms of a particular society to appreciate the worldview of that society. Blackfoot paradigms include, and here we could switch Cree, Sioux, and so on, include notions of constant flux. Everything is forever in motion. Existence consists of energy waves as opposed to matter. Everything is animate. Existence is a web of relationships. Renewal and maintenance of those conditions and factors that make for the present reality without which humans cannot survive as a species, and sustaining the land upon which the present reality depends. Language, lastly, acts as a repository for the knowledge that arises out of those paradigms, hence the importance of language. Most people think language is just a kind of a communication system, but in fact, the very language you speak colonizes you, you know? People think I'm free to think any which, but in reality, every language has its boundaries, and it leads you down this garden pathway, and so on. And so, thinking from a science point of view, hey, whether it's mathematics, whether it's French, whether it's Mongolian or English, hey, that language leads you down a pathway. See? So it's not to say you shouldn't speak those languages and so on. The thing to do is realize what are these mathematics doing to me, okay? What is Blackfoot doing to me? What's English doing to me? What pathway is it leading me down? See, that's the thing to realize, see. Now, hundreds of generations of North American Indians have come and gone since before and after the last Ice Age. Through their mutual relationship with the land, they have developed icons, symbols, and images of the totality of the environment, okay? Those icons, symbols, and images serve as repositories for the paradigms, values, and customs, okay? In other words, that's what we're talking about. That's what we embody. You know, they become part of us. Okay, that's what we embody. Okay, for Indians, the ensoulment of the land is a web of relations with the earth, animals, plants, and so on. For David Abram, events happen somewhere. Events become events belong to the place, and to tell the story of the events is to let the place speak through the telling. You hear Native people forever talking about stories, okay? So it's really the stories of that place. And so it goes with the songs of that place, you know, the ceremonies of that place. See? And you'll hear that from the elders. You'll continue to hear that when you're talking about environment and so on. Okay. Land is a very important referent in the minds of Native people. The land is mother. It cannot be separated from the actual being of Indians according to Kahete. Native people express a relationship to the natural world that could be called ensoulment. And this notion of ensoulment is one of the ancient foundations of human psychology. You know, because it's that much a part of this embodiment, okay? And especially if we're in the field of education, it's this ensoulment that we have to kind of like pass down to the younger generation, you know? If we're going to pass our cultures to them. You have to pass that ensoulment notion to the younger generation. Okay? So, from the above, one can conclude that it is the place that determines who you are. And Waters, a native philosopher, observes American Indian identity and worldview, a history of place consciousness preserved through oral history, manifests discrete geographical place symbols within consciousness that provide a conceptual framework of identity as place. American Indian consciousness, and hence American Indian identity, is cognitively of and interdependent with our land base and all that goes with it. Say, animals, plants, and so on, even the cosmos, and so on. Okay. So you begin to see the picture. A lot of times people say, well, yeah, okay, especially social scientists begin to say, yeah, okay, nice story and so forth. But axiology speaks to the worth of what you're teaching. Okay. Well, just very quickly, what is the axiology of Blackfoot culture? Well, in science, time and space being the same, you will recall Einstein caused a revolution in science when he said time and space was the same. Okay? Well, in Blackfoot, in Cree, in Dakota, that was old hat. That was, we knew that. Non-locality continues to be a problem that gives scientists headaches. Okay? No problem for Native people. Higgs particle, hey, that's another thing. 5-6 years ago, they thought they discovered the Higgs particle. And, but now they're backing off a bit. How many people know what Higgs particle is about? Okay. You know the old formula, E equals mc squared? Okay. Which means energy equals matter. Okay. They're trying to find out how energy transforms into matter. Okay, so they're talking about it in terms of particle, in other words, matter. Actually, it's a field, not matter. Okay, well, that transformation, okay, well, if you go back to the flux we mentioned, hey, the notion of transformations and so on, spirit transforms itself all the time. Not a big problem, accepting transformations and so on. Spatial dimensions were made to believe we're four-dimensional beings, okay? Time, depth, height, and width. We're a whole now. Superstring theorists are saying, I think we're a whole lot more than just 4 dimensions, We know that. In economics, hey, what we're going through with is exponential growth, and that's what keeps getting us into trouble when we should be dealing with sustainable growth and so on, okay? And governments don't learn, say. In psychology, Maslow was famous for his hierarchy of needs, okay? Well, Maslow, did you know Maslow learned those hierarchy of needs from the Blackfoot? That's where he got those ideas. But he never gave credit to the Blackfoot for it. So the thing is, I don't mind talking about those needs, but the only thing I disagree with him about is I don't think Blackfoot would have taught him in a hierarchy. You probably talk to him about it in terms of a holistic approach. And in law, oral histories, the Supreme Court in the Dalgamou case have said oral histories are as good as written history. And dealing with relationships, you've all heard about, I mention this all the time, give me simplicity on the other side of complexity. How many have heard that old saying? See, well, Native people are very good at looking at the big picture. In other words, the simplicity, instead of getting stuck in the crossing the T's and dotting the I's and so on. And so many of us get stuck in the bureaucratic aspects and so on, in our day-to-day operations and so on. But see, those are things we can learn from native cultures. Now, the metaphysics are present existence from a Blackfoot perspective. From the modern Western metaphysics, those are the modern Western metaphysics are the dominant Western metaphysics. And this is where we say, if they are the modern dominating metaphysics, where are they taking us? Have we ever stopped to examine those? They're the dominant metaphysics. Instead of flux, it's stagnant. God does not play dice with the universe. Remember Einstein? This is the way God made it, and it'll never change. See, God's work is beautiful. All we have to do is discover what God made. Everything is about matter as opposed to energy waves. Everything is inanimate except you and I and a few of those, those other animals out there. But when it comes to plants and rocks, they're inanimate. See? We look at things in isolation, okay? We're reductionists, okay? We may start out broad, but we always come down to the point. We always say, this is the right answer. This is the right way. Say. We are future-oriented. We don't make use of the past. We're always looking upstream, and so on. In other words, been there, done, did it. Let's move on, All of the above is captured in the language we speak, like English, a noun-based language. We name things and so forth. Have you ever stopped and questioned the English language? Because the ordinary English language, in the English sentence, is A is B, right? That's very simplistically, that's the ordinary English sentence. A is B. Think about it. If A is B, why do we need B? If A equals B, why do we need? See, and it has lots of other implications. Western society always needs the other. As a result of that, A is B. Always needs another. Whereas Native people and other indigenous societies will say, I'm it. I am the environment. Say, I am the universe. Say. These metaphysics give birth to social values such as bigger, newer, faster, higher, more, and so on. You see the picture, okay? Even refrigerators are being sold as 2019 models, you know. These in turn are based on the thinking of the Enlightenment era or the Age of Reason, which was, you know, back 500, 600, 700 years ago, which was the Enlightenment era. Ideas weren't new, but they kind of coalesced about that time. Okay. The mysticism, miracles, in the Age of Reason, mysticism, miracles, ghosts, and the like were frowned upon. Why? Because in the Age of Reason, firstly, the Age of Reason, anything that was not measurable, that's where current science, the science methodology came up. Anything that was not measurable was not science, okay? Feelings, emotions were not measurable. So, you know, they were pushed aside, okay? Women were too emotional. They wouldn't make good scientists. They were pushed aside, okay? And we're seeing all the ramifications today, women's movements and so on, etc. See, there is no room for anything that cannot be measured, nor is there any room for subjectivity, you know, thought processes and so on, okay? So, I keep pushing the wrong button. Mathematics, because of measurement, mathematics came into the existence. One comment about that is that science, the English language, sometimes cannot explain what is happening in science. So we have to adopt another language, which is mathematics, to explain the scientific processes, the scientific happenings. That's why mathematics plays such an important role in Western science. But see, in Blackfoot, we can explain those things. We don't have to revert to mathematics or a different language. If we get more time, I can enter into a discussion about that. Scholars such as Ian McGilchrist suggest that we have become largely left-brain thinkers. Our thinking is about control and manipulation, abstraction, anonymity, organizability, predictability, and of course, financial, balance sheets. In the process, justice gets interpreted simply as equality, okay? The law can be very unfair, but as long as it's equally applied, that's equality. See? Now, there was a deal where Ian McGilchrist was telling me about, in a conversation I had with him, he was telling me about a situation where he was saying a teacher was telling him that we've become so robotized that, we're having to explain or teach our kids how to read facial expressions, because now they're so used to the smartphones. Now we have to teach them how to read facial expressions. They don't know how to read those anymore, so on. And the approach we take as a result of our science, our math, and so on, has become so propositional, okay? Declaratory, okay? Coming back to that Higgs particle, they were saying between energy and matter, that Higgs particle, that Higgs field is right here. It should be right here, okay? We just need to find the right formula, see? That's propositional, as opposed to actual experience. See? I'll skip over some of this. Von Goethe was a scientist in the early days that tried to question some of this science approach and so on. And here I just have pictures of, cosmic pictures of the native science and so on. And these are, this would be interesting. In quantum physics, and we can use, for instance, we can apply this to environmental science, but I chose to use quantum physics. Consciousness affects reality in quantum physics. So in native science, yes. Matter is a matter of space curvature. In Blackfoot, it's simply description. Time is space-time continuum in quantum physics. In native science, time is just is, okay? Matter in quantum physics is particle-wave duality. In native science, it's about waves. It's not about particles. Reality, there's no deep reality. And that's why they're coming back and they're saying, I think the answer is in us. See? And cause and effect causes paradoxes for scientists, okay? We're reductionists and we're holistic in Blackfoot. experimental methods, we do experiments and proof over here. We largely do observations. Knowledge is cumulative in Western thinking. In Native thought, it's always about renewing it all the time, okay? Language is binary. In Native languages are process-oriented, see, comparing those kind of differences, okay? We as Homo sapiens, are we better off as a result of the dominant metaphysics? Is it really advancing the reason for our existence if we ever stop and think about it? Is our current metaphysics just another passing phase? I jokingly say, I used to text Neanderthal man, but where is he now? Okay, where is he? Well, maybe it's time we take a look at other metaphysics, other ways of knowing, see? And that we, maybe we should take a good look at other ways of looking at things. Western science is largely aimed at exploration. Native science is aimed at sustainability. We exist in a very narrow gap of existence, okay? And, if we fool around with those factors and so on, we may not be around. We may go the way of Neanderthal. That's something we should think about, okay? But the fish has been around for a long time, even before the dinosaurs. Have we ever talked to the fish to find out his secret? Okay? So those are the kind of things, for instance, our universities are still turning out these same type of thinking that was way back 500-600 years ago. And our universities, could it be that our present metaphysics and approach are just a little bit out of date? Just like your 2-year-old iPhone. Apple will tell you your 2-year-old, is a little bit out of date, okay? Could it be that, see, we're still using those from 500, 600, 700 years ago, okay? And our universities are still using those, and we're still producing students based on those metaphysics, okay? Well, Blackfoot, Cree, Dakota, Sioux metaphysics are waiting in the wings. They've got something new to offer. Thank you.